It is so important to me to ensure that this show only promotes positivity and love. Take this episode and use it to encourage yourself to listen to that inner voice, your intuition. Remember, intuition, by definition, is a thought before your brain overcomplicates things. It's literally our roadmap to happiness and success. All we have to do is learn to follow it. Together, we can reach our full potential and redefine life on our terms. Here's another show that's going to help you get even closer. Welcome to Inspired by Jimmy L. I am brave, I am proof, I am who I'm meant to be. This is me. Okay, let me start by saying I completely apologize for the audio quality and technical difficulties during this show. But I promise you, it was just way too much knowledge. And I just could not waste the taping of this show. I just couldn't. Talk about reality. So I guess it is what it is. But I do apologize in advance. Okay, so you may know him as a YouTube sensation. You may have even heard him on countless, and I do mean countless, podcasts. Or actually, you may remember him from his own TV show. Sean Mulony is on a mission to bring awareness to the obesity revolution. He started out at 687 pounds and has decided to document his weight loss progression with hopes of inspiring millions. Sean has discovered, and I actually agree, we all have a 687-pound problem in our lives, and we should no longer ignore it, but do something about it. His story is remarkable. His fame is still rising. His life has been challenging, but his goal has never wavered. Have a question or you need advice about anything? Visit him at obesityrevolution.com. He would be so thrilled to help out. Let's get inspired with today's episode. Wow, is all that I can say. P.S. 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 I can't wait to see his reality show. It's actually coming soon.
Forward. All right, good day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inspired by Jimmy L. I'm Jimmy Ward and today's guest is I'm really hey, first off, I thank you so much for saying yes, and I appreciate your time on so many different levels. You have no idea how excited I am. But this dude is out there making it happen. I actually posted something a few days ago in honor of him, and just reminding us all about mind over matter. But today we have no other than Mr. Sean Mulroney. Welcome, Sean. Thank
Well,
you again.
thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it, man. Inspired by Jimmy L, man. I'm ready to go. So,
All right. I mean, hell, I'm inspired by you. I heard the podcast that you did, and I know we kind of briefly spoke about it earlier last week. But like I said, man, I heard the podcast that you did, and it really inspired me to get my ass up and do something. You know what I mean? It really and I spoke to you immediately after, but dude, you had me so pumped. I was so pumped. That was because I had no excuses. And at the end of the day, I had to really get my mind back in check. I was having an off day that day, which is kind of odd. But for everyone that doesn't necessarily know you, we know the reality show is coming up soon. I know we kind of talked about that. You talked about being a YouTube sensation and blowing up on YouTube. So, I mean, I know we'll probably hint on that a little bit, but I'm really, really more so concerned about, what triggered all of this? What started your journey in general?
sure. Well, of course, and for anybody that doesn't know, and Jimmy, I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor. I love this. Any time I can get my story out there, I'm honored and humbled by that. So it's pretty awesome. But at my highest weight, let me start back a little bit more, just give it elevator type, speech here.
Okay.
6 years of age, my father died, lung cancer. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is where I'm originally from. First time I ever tried drugs and alcohol that I remember was 6 years of age also. So yeah, yes, it was bad. I was so, and then by 13, I was involved. I would consider myself an addict, especially with drinking, and all through my teen years, made bad choices. I mean, just had a lot of, you know, wrong things I did. Choices, belong to me, not the consequences, and so I went through my life, just lived aimlessly. Didn't have any target, didn't care about going to college. I had a teacher that even said if there was a vote for the one least likely to succeed, that I'd get it. I
And
didn't.
that was at 13?
Yeah, no, that not 13. This is whenever I was, I think, in 10th grade at that time. That was a high school teacher that said that to me. And of course, I was frustrating to teachers, you know what I'm saying? But, I sort of laughed it off. But I mean, I still remember it to this day. And, but all through that, because I was, I didn't care about school. I didn't apply myself. Failed every, if there was an oral report or, speech class, I failed everything doing that kind of stuff. I would have never, thought that I'd be speaking publicly in my whole entire life. I mean, that was you know, uh, amazing. So people are still amazed at the fact of that. But so 21, it's amazing. 21 years of age, I got clean. I got out of that, did an about face, did a 180, and turned my life around. I got out of
Well,
that stuff.
what made you get clean? Because I heard you talk about that on the podcast with Zachary,
Sure.
but what made you
Yes.
get clean?
Well, there's a series of things, Jimmy, and that's a great question. I have my mother was awesome. Okay, my mother was a prayer warrior. I mean, she was there. She loved me unconditionally. Even whenever I'd come home, drunk or doing high, my mother would be there. She even at a very bad time, I got so sick from alcohol that my mother just put her arms around me and says, "I love you no matter what." And I think I was 15 at that time. I believe it was. And so my mother was a big part of my life, and she passed away. She passed away 6 years ago, which she was my whole being. If there's unconditional love when nobody else loved me, my mother
Your
did. But
mother. Ooh, I
it,
love
it
that.
is,
I love
it is. And my mother, she used to say to me, and I used to ignore it. You know what I mean? She'd say, "Well, I'm going out and party," and my mom said, "I'm praying for you." I said, "I don't want you praying for me," and because I knew I was going out to do things that I shouldn't have been doing,
Yeah.
and I was breaking her heart. Well, so through them years that there was turbulent, times, and I had, death of, family members and friends that have died from, drinking and driving, suicide, heroin overdoses. So it was like hitting close to home. But it's still like, somebody told me that they said, "Well, what about you? You're not an exception to the rule. What if that happened to you?" And that's sort
Maybe
of, that's
possibility.
a big possibility. It's like, something was getting my attention. And my mother told me whenever I came out of that, she goes, "For years you ignored me," but she said, "You couldn't ignore my prayers," is what she said to me. And,
There's a song that's out there that my mother actually makes me listen to every once in a while, but it's called "A Praying Grandmother." And
yes,
like
yes.
oh my God, there's nothing like a praying woman.
No, no, no. You say that, Jimmy, but that's what she said to me. She told me this. She said, you couldn't, you ignored what I said to you. I'd go out the door. She said, you could ignore me, but you couldn't ignore my prayers." And she said, the second thing was, she said, "All hell cannot take a child away from a praying mother." And
At
so
all.
whenever she
There's no
said that
shot.
to me, yes, yes. And so when she said that to me, it hit me, right there in the heart. It was like, a wake up call. And, so I did all kinds of things like, smoking cigarettes and, doing all these kind of things. And I used to chew tobacco also. Well, it was like these things. And I thought I had cancer in my mouth is what had happened. And I said, "I'm done." You know what I'm saying? I was scared to death that I was dying. here I'm, 20 going on 21 years of age. And I just said, that's it. I mean, I'm like, drinking, and that was getting a hold of me. I had nowhere to go, and it messed up my life. So
In your mouth? Oh, you thought you did.
what's
Wow.
that? It's just amazing to me, Jimmy, that how, I'm doing what I'm doing, and how I am, going forward through with my life, and making a difference and making a change. And that's what happened to me. So 21 years of age, did all that. So long story short, I turned my whole life, and I started going and, replacing, the bad vices with food, with all kinds of, bad, lifestyle. And I didn't know it. It just was bad. And it took me down a bad road. And then I started, gaining weight, and I played sports in high school. Not only sports, but I played music, and it got even worse, and fast food was my go-to.
And I hate editing. Oh, I hate editing. I do because I like for the conversations to be completely organic and natural, and I
Yes,
don't like
yes,
to leave
yes.
anything out.
Right.
But like I know that like it started to cut off a little bit, and I know that you were talking about your mother being a prayer warrior,
Hmm.
and how it was a turning point for you to wake up to say, hey, this is obviously something that you want to kind of get away from it. And I know you mentioned that a few people have passed away as well from overdoses.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
overdoses. Yeah.
like that is crazy. Like that's
Hmm.
tough on anybody. Like nevertheless, someone that's under the age of 30. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
So
right,
that's
right.
wow. Okay, so let me ask you this. So from there, you decide to get clean. So then what happens?
Well, what was it? It was a process. It was like, I think that the hardest thing about coming out of, addiction or anything, and why it's so hard for people, is that you got to come out the same way you went back in.
What do you mean by that?
So I, well, think about this. You make a series of hard choices to get wrong choices to get to a hard place, right?
Hmm.
So what happens is you dig yourself into a hole. Now you got to start doing the same process back, and start. That's why it's so hard for people to get their lives right, because then they start having to make that same, go through the doors that they went down that path. You got to come through and face the reality of them same choices that got you to that place. And so now you got to sort of come back the same way, and you got to start shutting the doors as you start coming through, because it's a process. So I had, anybody that's in addiction, you don't fall into addiction, you crawl into addiction. It's like, it doesn't, you don't just wake up one night, one day, and say, man, I'm going to be an addict to whatever it may be, or I'm going to make this bad choice. You crawl into it, because behind every fall is a process of bad thinking. So anytime we go down a bad road, there's this process, and that's just the same thing with anybody. Is that you get so dark and deep and into a hole. That's why depression is really, it's rough on people, is because they get so far into it that they can't come out of it, because it's a harder to come out of it. It's almost like magnified. Everything is harder. You got to do the same thing. So there's no easy way to get out of a bad situation. You got to come out the same way you went in. And that's what
So
anybody does.
so how do you suggest one to start that road? Because for me, like I've seen it firsthand what alcoholism can do.
Hmm.
I've seen it firsthand on so many different people. I've seen the trauma that it can have on that person. I've seen the trauma that it can have on the children and the family that's associated. Like I see that, and so I know it's not an easy task. So I know
Right.
it's not one thing you just wake up and say, "Hey, let me close those doors."
Right.
How can you possibly and so don't take this the wrong way, please don't. But how can you get that into your mind that this is what I need to do? Like how can you do that?
Well, here's the thing. You can't. I mean, that nobody can do it for you, number one. And you got to come to self, as like I said, reality. If you don't, come to yourself. And whenever you are in desperation, but a lot of people don't know how to cry out for help. And so what they do is they rather bury themselves in addiction even further. And that's why you think about overdoses, people that, are there. Think about it. An addict wants to get clean. Okay. They didn't set out to be, an addict and be that way. That's how, involved they are. That's how, cluttered up they are in their lives. And if they don't realize that, if they don't have that coming to, their own selves and realizing the error of their ways, and that they are desperate, because nobody can pull you out. Nobody can, people can be there to help you and support you, because support and accountability is vital. But at the same time is that you have to realize, okay, I'm done with this. I got to do anywhere to get help. But see, most people that are involved in a lot of, addiction don't think that they need the help. They think I'm okay. I'm an exception to the rule. And, and then all of a sudden they turn out to be a tragic statistic rather than a triumphant success, because it's all about that choice. But you got to come, face to face with what you're doing and admit that you have a problem. If you don't admit it and you don't come to yourself, then you're never going to start on that pathway and go through them series of bad choices that got you there and come out that way, because it's there's no shortcut, to coming out of that lifestyle. Not at all.
I will say this, and not to say that I'm glad that you went through that journey, but I'm so thankful that you're able to share that story, because I know, because that could be extremely touchy, because to be able to go back there and relive, or to remember what that was like, or to know those feelings, like that could be like, even like me just knowing, like knowing the family members and how I felt personally, not even the person that was doing it, but how it made me feel to see them doing that around the family. It really hurts. And that person is dead and gone. And I'm like, but to relive that, it really, really hurts. So I know, for one, I'm very honored and I'm very thankful that you're able to do that and help others along the way. But it's something that you just said, and I'm assuming that it was something that you learned along your time or your process. But again, back to mind over matter, it seems to me that you are using those same tools or same techniques or something to do what you're doing now, because I know you now have, or you were at 687 in weight at one point, which was a trigger for you or something, correct? To want to help others to try to follow your path again. So once you made it there, what happened?
Well, here's the thing, with all that, I had all these choices that I went through, Jimmy, and did a whole, the process, and my pain has turned into my greatest platform. So I have all this to where, two ways is, number one, I came up with the organization called Teens of America. I started that in 1998. And I spoke in public schools all over the country, sharing my story. Okay. And at this time, of course, I had, bad lifestyle, giving up all that stuff. I started, using, instead of doing that, eating the wrong foods, caloric drinks, and traveling, traveling's already bad enough that whenever you travel like that, you eat bad. Fast food is convenient. I mean, it just is. Yes, absolutely. So I had all that I replaced it. So you start replacing that. People that give up cigarettes usually gain weight, right afterwards, because they have to fill that void that they had, that habit of smoking cigarettes. That, okay, food, I'm going to transition. Well, the one thing about, drugs and alcohol is that you can live without that. You can't live without food. And so if I knew then what I know now, I would have never done it. Hindsight's 2020, and I didn't have no concept of food. And yes, I had no concept of food and, the calories and a healthy lifestyle. So what happened is I got married this August. I'll be married 20 years to my lovely wife, Jessica. And yes, Well, thanks. Yeah, it's a miracle. She stayed with me for 20 years. That's what everybody says. You know, so she's awesome. I have, 3 daughters, which I'll get into in a minute too, because that was an epiphany and a change in my life. But the thing is, I went out and I started gaining weight. You know what I'm saying? And I was fine. Whenever I got married, I weighed about in my upper 300s, okay, which is manageable.
Okay.
You know, that's a,
Exactly.
a lot of people, I managed, I traveled, I flew all over the country. And, I used to speak to about 100, 150,000 students a year, in schools. So it was
Wow.
great. I mean,
I didn't
and
know.
sharing my story of
Okay.
addiction and my choices and consequences. And so, long story short, 2000, from 98 to 2000, I was down in Louisiana speaking at a youth conference. And I got real sick. I didn't know what it was. I thought, I got bit by a spider. I was feeling flu-y. And sure enough, there was a nurse that was on location. She checked out my leg. She said, no, that's cellulitis. She got me an appointment before I flew out that Monday. She's got me an appointment for the Cedar doctor. And yes, right, he said it was cellulitis, which I didn't know what cellulitis was. And it's an infection, skin infection. Well, from 2000, and of course, I'm eating bad at this time. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get that way from
Of course.
drinking water and breathing air. You know what I'm saying? There's bad choices and food and all that stuff. And a lot of people, what they do, they automatically assume that a person that's obese is addicted to food. Well, that's a stereotype. It's not about that. I mean, did I eat bad? Of course, it was a perfect storm that came into my life. So I got that infection. So from 2000 to 2004, I got like 4 bouts of cellulitis, and each time I would get it, my leg would swell. It was on the inside of my leg, and each time that would swell, it wouldn't go down all the way, and it kept doing that. It kept doing that. You know what I'm saying? So from 2000 to 2004, I never was in the hospital a day in my life. I never stayed overnight all the way up until 2004. 2004, I get that cellulitis, and they put me on antibiotics, not thinking nothing of it. And what is happening on my right side of my body, my lymph system, your lymphatic system, which is what fights infections, and it's about a little right below the skin surface, and lymph nodes, and that's what pushes the fights your infection, that keeps all that bacteria, whether it's staph or strep, that gets into there. But my lymph system wasn't working, and it was shutting down apparently. So whether it was from whenever I was born, or the stress of all, using drugs at a young age, and a lot of factors just turned into it, because your choice is yours, not the consequences. So I never set out to be a drug addict. I never set out to be 687 pounds. I didn't say when I was in senior in high school, man, I'm going to be 687 pounds. And that was never my goal. But at the same time, I got that infection. I got put in the hospital because I did not know this, but I started getting a rash from the antibiotic. And when I got this, it was from the Cipro I was taking. And I remember I had blisters over 90% of my body, Jimmy.
So, so Sean, was it an allergic reaction that you were having to the antibiotics? That's
Yes,
what it
it
was.
exactly
Okay.
was. It was, I found out that I had Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which
Now,
is a
what is that?
severe, well, that's a severe allergic reaction that you get from an antibiotic. And I had blisters over 90% of my body. And every time I'd walk, they would pop and they would burst.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad.
Okay, so that had to have been painful as hell.
It was very painful. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was like the thing is it was like my whole skin felt like it was going to just rip off. That's how tight it was, because from the swelling and stuff. So, nonetheless, when I went into the hospital, the infectious disease doctor came in and he shut everything down. He looked in my throat and he shut everything down, because it was going into my mucous membrane. And whenever that infection starts moving into your, the reaction starts moving, if I would have taken one more dose, I would have been dead. And so he reversed everything. And so the story that I give that is from 2000 to 2004. There was a scale on the bed. I didn't weigh myself at all. I just didn't from that time. And I know I was gaining weight, but you never think it starts coming on. So from 2000 to 2004 on the bed, my wife hit the scale, wanted to check my weight, and it was 567 at that time, 2004. And so I went from like 340 to 567 in a matter of 4 years, because my lymph system shutting down, my eating poorly, just eating bad,
So,
and so it was a perfect storm, if you
at
will.
that point, were you on like bed rest or something?
No, I mean, you mean
No.
at that whenever I was in the hospital, you mean, or
Yeah.
from 2000? No, well, I was in the hospital just like for about 4 or 5 days. That's it. So
Okay.
it was nothing, big. It just wasn't, going. I wasn't and I got out of the hospital, and of course I did that, and I kept on getting the infection. So I've had this infection 18 times since 2000, and I've been hospitalized 11 times and almost died twice. So that's what happened, and I have a mass on the inside of my leg that weighed up to 60 to 70 pounds by itself.
Long. Oh my God. Oh
Hmm.
my God.
Yes. So it was all this perfect storm, and lo and behold, you know, uh, however many years, 3 or 4 years ago, my weight got all the way up to 687. And so it was like, reality. I knew, I want to do something about it, but it was overwhelming. Having that, I couldn't do the activity that I needed because of my leg and because of the infections. When you think about it, I had it's since 2000 to 2000, I've had an infection equivalent to one a year right now, and it puts me in a hospital for 5 or 6 days. And so recently, since having a healthy lifestyle, last time I was in the hospital, I was only in there for 3 days, and my numbers were great. You know what I'm saying? But I'm
Great.
still prone to that infection because of my lymph system, and it was sort of like I said, from the addiction. So all these things, lifestyle, addiction at a young age, replacing it with food, medical, all this stuff came to a head, and it just sent me over the edge. And 567, I wanted to give up 6 years ago. My mom passed away 6 years ago, and which was devastating to me. Had a bad hospital stay. I had a nurse tell me that I was disgusting for being obese and fat, and she just treated me like
That
garbage.
is ridiculous.
It
Like,
is. It is.
That is the like that pisses me off. Like, and I know I heard you say that, but because like my mother works at the house, like she's in the medical field, and like
Yeah.
for her to hear something like she would never ever tolerate that.
No, right. Well, you'd think that it would be, common sense isn't so common anymore, Jimmy. You know what I'm saying? It just isn't. And she, she did. And then the two doctors that I had were completely dismissive. They told me, they said, "Well, you're diabetic." I said, "No, I'm not." They wouldn't get my medical records from the other hospital. I went there because I was getting lymphedema therapy. And so the doctors kept me in for 3 extra days doing tests on me that they said I had, but I didn't, because I don't. My cholesterol is good, because they automatically assume that a person that's morbidly obese, all these things are wrong with them. Well, they weren't. My heart's good. My cholesterol is good. My blood pressure is 130/70. My blood sugar is fine. I'm not diabetic. I have a good constitution as far as that's concerned. I have my lymphedema, which is my culprit, and so what happened in 2000 or 6 years ago, I said enough's enough. I was in a hospital, had that worst stay, but my therapist came in whenever I was having that. I wanted to die. I was in a dark period for about a year, and I didn't want to go on. My wife was, I had a 2-year-old at that time, and my she was planning on, she was supportive of me, but she was scared for me, and she was sort of planning on being a widow and a single mother at the time. And because I was in a dark, I regressed from life. I didn't want to, I didn't want, to deal, because I was done. My mom passed away. It was just a whole lot of things that I didn't want to go on. I was just like praying, to God that he would just, get me out of this world. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to live anymore. Well, intrinsic motivation kicked in, and I remember my therapist, Leslie, who I love her, man. She was awesome. She was my she was working on my legs. She did the lymphatic therapy on my legs. She said to me, she said, Sean, she goes, you're trapped. She goes, you need to just, get it, out of this. She goes, you got more to life than, what it is. And I said, you're right, Leslie. So 6 years ago, when I got out of the hospital, I gave up my pop, my soda, and I gave up fast food. And that was it. I never, went back. I haven't had a Big Mac, in 6 years. I haven't touched
You're
it.
not missing anything.
No,
You're
no.
not
Well,
missing anything.
that's what got me where I'm at. So it just, and I love drinking. If I could drink a 2 liter of pop, like it was going out of style. And, I would suck it down, but
Yeah, yeah.
it was just, drinking your calories is the worst thing. So, what had happened was after it was all said and done, I intrinsic motivation, and I said, okay, I'm going to do something. I got out of the hospital, of course. When my daughter Madison was born in 2010, man, she changed my life. I mean, it was just amazing. And then, my second daughter, Olivia, was born. She's 4 now. And then my daughter, Mackenzie, she's a year and 4 months now. And so what happened, it took us 12 years to have children, so it was just, that was another thing, but so in 2006, I got out of the hospital, and I've been on my journey for 6 years, my healthy lifestyle journey. I don't call it, no, not a diet. I quit saying that because diets have hurt me. And so,
because realistically, it is a lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle, a
and
journey.
It's your journey.
Yeah. It has to be a journey. It has to be a process, and just like anything, I mean, I wouldn't change anything in my life that happened to me. It's all part of what I am. It would have, if one thing would have been off, it would have just threw my whole, who I am off. So, so I spent 5 years. I did not know this, 5 years getting my mind in shape. So if the mind, you know what I mean? If the mind, what the mind believes the body will achieve. And I tried to get the body into subjection. I tried to get my body, but if you can't, if your mind and the mental, toughness isn't there, you can't do this. So I did not know this, but 5 years I spent getting my mind in shape. And so what the changing point was, which was awesome, was my third daughter, Mackenzie, was born on December 29th, 2000, or December 26th, 2016, right? And so every one of my daughters, I cut the umbilical cord, right? I mean, it was like, okay, I have now another life depending on me. And each one got even more real. It got, down to reality check central. It was like, okay, I gotta, what's going on here? And so when Madison was born, I was like, okay, I was still functional in 2010. I was traveling and stuff. And then I got taken off the road. In 2012, I had to, quit traveling because of my leg. And so when Livy was born, it was awesome. But then here's what happened. I knew in 2000 December, I mean, it was just like, I needed a trainer. I had trainers that dismissed, they didn't want nothing to do with me. They didn't want to work with somebody that was my size, because most trainers aren't equipped. What I'm finding out, the health and fitness industry isn't made to work with people like my community. And so what I did was December, 2016, the 2026, when Mackenzie was born, being in the hospital, cut the umbilical cord. My wife was in the hospital. I came home, had my 2 oldest daughters. They were sitting and playing in the living room. We had to be there super, dark 30 in the morning. And so my wife was resting. Mackenzie was fine. Everything was great. I came home. My daughters and my Madison and Livy were in the living room, just playing around. And my mother-in-law was going to take them over to her house for a little bit, so I could get like a nap, because I was tired. And I remember looking at them, And as soon as they left, Jimmy, or something told me there was a gym about 3 miles away from my house. Okay, I knew I needed to get something close that was accessible to I was at. It was all. Are you there, Jimmy? Sorry about that.
Yeah,
So
I know.
and so I had to, change the whole thinking is that I was going to call that gym, and I didn't know it was like it was something that kicked in. I don't know what it was. I got on, Googled the number, and about 10 minutes after my daughters and my mother-in-law left, I was on the phone with the gym. And the receptionist answered. She says, "There's no trainers here." I said, "Well," and I gave her my story. I just put it out there. I said, "Here's where I'm at." And
Right.
she goes, "Wow." She goes, My heart goes out to you." She goes, "I'm going to leave this." I took a bunch of notes down. "I'm going to leave this with a trainer." And I said, "Well, thank you." And so an hour later, I get a call, and
Oh, that
he
was
says,
fast.
"Sean, this is Brandon Glore from, you left a message. I got a call, a message from the receptionist." And I said, "Man, well, thanks for calling me." And he says, "Man, so we talked for about an hour." I told him, and he's like, "Man," "I'd love to meet you." I said, "Well, I'd love to meet you too." He says, "How about this week?" I said, "Well, I can't." I said, my third daughter was born." And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get it. He goes, "Wait a minute." He goes, how about I come to your house?" I said, "What?" He says, "How about I come to your house?" I said, "Well, okay." I said, "For sure." He said, "How about tomorrow at 2?" And sure enough, he came to the next day at 2 o'clock. And, I called my wife that day and she thought she was delirious. She said, she thought she was on some good medication. She said, "What? You called a trainer?" And she couldn't even believe that, and she's like, "Man, they got me." She said, "I can't hear you." She said, "You said a trainer?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got a, health and fitness trainer coming over tomorrow." And she's like, okay." And she's like, good for you." And so he came the next day, Brandon Glore, who is incredible. I can't say enough about him. And we sat here for about 2 hours, that day. And I did not know this at the time, but he wasn't taking on any other clients. And
Okay.
I always joke and I say that, whenever we do any other interviews, we did TV interviews together, him and I, and I say that he wanted just to come over to see how fat I was, is what and I said that's why he wanted to come and see me. And so, anyways, he came and we spent there. He looks at me, he goes, "Man," he goes, "You're ready for this?" I said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "You ready to work?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Well," he says, "I'm going to take you on." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what's this, going to cost?" He goes, I said, "I'm taking you on for nothing." He said, "You're going to be my client. I'm taking you on for nothing." And he says, He says, "You're ready to work." He says, "You got it in you." And, I told him, I said, "I got the eye of the tiger." I said, I got this one. And "Well, we'll start working." He says, "Wait to get your daughter home and, try to, get recuperated with your wife and get settled in." He says, I started on January 10th, 2017 in the gym, went to the gym the first time. And man, he put me through a workout. Man, my toes, nails were hurting. My hair was
That's a
hurting.
good trainer. Oh, that's a good trainer.
Yeah, oh, man. Well, and that's what I'm saying. And I just, put it through there. And so what I did is I said, okay. And since then it's been a year and a half, a year and 7 months right now. And he said to me, he came out, and after it was all said and done, when he did that, I said, "Well, I want you to, videotape me doing an exercise." He said, "Okay." And so I wanted to put myself out there further and show my friends and family. And I did the battle ropes, these battle ropes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets your whole body, going, and it's a whole body workout.
It's so intense. It is
It
so
is
intense.
intense. It really,
Yeah.
really, really is. And then, so what happened was we put that out there, and I put that video out. And when I did the video, um, what's that? Okay. And so when I did, I'm sorry, my wife just
You're
said
fine.
something. Actually, everybody out there, and Jimmy Land, don't be mad at me. So, uh, so, so anyways, he said, we did that, and I put it out there. And whenever I put it, I had a public figure page. It had about 300 people on there. Okay. And so I just put it out there just to put myself, through there. And so he said, I put, it was amazing. And he got 200,000 views in like 4 hours, Jimmy.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, what? Yeah. I was like, what? I was getting blown up. I didn't know what happened. It just started going all over. And then by the next day, it was at 2 million people reached. And it just like my story, I just got out there.
Did you put your story on there with the video, or was it
No, just me exercising. And I put like a tagline, on the video says, hey, my dreams are bigger than my excuses. You know what I'm saying? You go to my Facebook page. Right now, I still have that up there. It's a pinned post, because that was the first, one that ever that got that out there. So I just put out, said, don't judge, you know what I'm saying? So from all over the world, man, people just start, man, this is inspiring, and sharing it. And, and so since that, I've done that, and my views on Instagram in the last year have been 25 million viewers.
Wow.
And just all over the place. And now, with my health, and I'm down 105 pounds since that.
That's what I love.
Yes.
I love that.
It's amazing. And I'm down and, finding out some other things. And now what happened again, my greatest pain has turned into my greatest platform, the obesity revolution, which came natural. People were saying, hey, this man, Sean Mulony, you're the leader of the obesity revolution. Hashtag Team Sean, hashtag the obesity revolution. And then all of a sudden it started turning into a whole program. I had hundreds of people every week, still do, that are struggling, that are in the shadows of obesity, because 40%, it is a real, it's bigger than 40% of America is obese. Yeah. And then 30% of the 40% never come out of their home, Jimmy. And so it struck a nerve, because my story, seeing me fighting obesity, gave them, my pain, helped them to understand, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. And people just starting their journey. Hey, what are you doing? How are you doing this? And I mean, I have people all over the world, sharing my story. And then, I had people reaching out to me. I haven't been out of my bedroom in 7 years. I haven't been out of my home in 10 years. I'm 600, I'm 700 pounds, I'm 580 pounds. I can't walk, I'm immobile, and seeing your story gives me hope. Yeah. And I can't tell you how awesome it is.
Something you said, and oh my gosh, and it that struck a chord with me as well, is no matter who you're talking to, and no matter what your quote unquote, in your words, your 687 pounds is, you can overcome it.
Exactly.
When I say that, struck a chord with me when you said that, because you're so right. Because we're all dealing with something.
Yes.
We're all trying to overcome something. We're all trying to better ourselves. You know what I mean? And whatever our quote unquote 687 is, like, we have to have our mindset in the right place to kind of get over that hump.
Absolutely, Jimmy. You're right. Well, you said it, like, everybody has a 687 pound problem. The difference between mine and yours is you can see mine, but we can't see yours. So that's where it's like, okay, what is it? Where is mine? My value is that we devalue people because my size, and also my obesity has been my frenemy. It's been my friend and my enemy, because it's also been a superpower to me, because why? Because it has kept me in shallow and fake people away from me, because people that are superficial, they don't want to have a obese person, because they judge you by your looks, or they judge you that you're fat, lazy, you're stinky, you're this and this and this and this. And think about this, Jimmy. Let's compare. I don't even relate this, because blacks have had it hard. The black community have had it hard. I don't care. We wouldn't have America.
For starters, wait a second, Sean. I thank you, and I'm one of the few people, but I want to stop and say thank you for saying the word black. I really dislike the word African American. I really dislike that word. It is what it is. But I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had to say that. But
well, that's it. But it's true. But you think about, we wouldn't have America if it wasn't for the black community.
Yeah.
Right. So and think about all the suppression. Everything that's going on there. White people brought the blacks over here. You know what I'm saying? We did that. We put them in that predicament. And I'm sorry. Yeah. There's like I said. Is there white privilege? Yes, you better believe it. We are in a country that has white privilege. Okay. So it's not about skin, that matters to anybody, or it shouldn't. Okay. If we let that. So the same thing as this, and I ain't even comparing on the things that the black community have had to go through since how long, but the same things. I believe the last prejudice now that we're fighting is obesity. So we get the same things as that. You look at the black community, how there's stigmas, right? There's a stereotype that people say, but that doesn't that's people, what they say or portray that as this or that, and it's wrong. So people get conceived in their notions is that my job is to create awareness and kill the assumption of obese people, because we are intelligent. You know what I'm saying? It starts with a voice. Yes.
We are people.
That's
we
it.
are all human beings with human emotions. We all have feelings. We all have thoughts. I love that.
The only race that we should have is the human race.
The human race.
That's it. Because red, yellow, black, white. Who gives a flip? You know what I'm saying? And we get overjudged. But that's the same thing. Now look at obesity. The same way. Nobody gives me. Here's what I always say: if you knew me, or if you got to know me, you wouldn't think the same things about me
at all.
At all.
At all. At all. At all. That is a whole other conversation.
It is.
Sean, I may have to get you back on the show, because that's a whole nother debate. Because I was going to let some things out the bag, but we're gonna. Okay, I know we're wearing down on time.
Yes.
But I want to ask you one final question, and it kind of relates. But I ask all of my guests, and I really would love to know your thoughts and your honest opinion, even though I know that you're going to give it anyway. But how does success and happiness look to you? Like, how do you see it? How do you define success and happiness?
Well, success is, I look at success as that you have to fail your way to success. Okay. I would not have success if I didn't fail, and you're not a failure until you quit, and I look at this way: failure plus failure plus failure plus failure plus failure plus failure plus failure equals success. So my failures and what I've done is I failed my way to success. I haven't, and I don't even. I think success is, what is it? Is success having money? No, I don't think it is. I think my success, where I determine it is that if I'm a good husband, number one, family first, and that my wife shrugs her shoulders right now as she's passing by. She's like shrugging her shoulders. She's like, so that's up for debate. She's like going like this. Yeah, my wife, just honest, she's awesome. But my good husband and my what my why is, Jimmy, is that my 3 daughters. I have a beautiful wife. I have 3 daughters. When you find your way, you find your why. And when you find your why, you find your way. And so I found my way is that I don't consider is being successful having a lot of money. No, I think being successful is having an attitude. I think success is an attitude.
It is.
I think it's all about an attitude on how you perceive it. Because I have I could get, hey, I'd love to have $1 million in my account. Who wouldn't? And my wife puts her thumbs up like this,
I'm with her.
Yeah, and who doesn't? Okay, but is that success? I don't think that's success. I think how I can better people, and how I can be a servant leader to other people, and how I can fill the gap and be exactly what I need to be in society and function in society and make people better for who they are. And like I said, I don't think there's a definition to success. I think success is an individual process, and that we don't compare to anybody else's success. Is that if your success, hey, if I start comparing your success to my success, that's where we go offline. If I say what's successful for Sean Mulony, and that's a whole different. Man, everybody, like, you see all these people, these big online marketers, right? They have their Lambos, they got their their rings, their watches. You know what I'm saying? Well, that's not for me, man. I mean, I never dreamt to have a Lambo. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to have, you know what I'm saying, all the gold. Man, look at. Well, listen, I believe things like that are nice.
I do want a Tesla.
Well, you can't. That's fine. If that's you,
I do want my Tesla.
Well, but see, if that's you, you know what I'm saying, that doesn't. All I want is a suburban, LTZ. You know what I'm saying? That's my dream car. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So a Lamborghini isn't my dream. A Tesla isn't. But if that's you, I want to do me and find out who I am and be the best me, because I'm a designer's image and made in God. I mean, there's a one of a kind. There's no other Jimmy L out there. There's no other Sean Mulony. But whenever I start comparing my success to your success, that's whenever we fall off the train. So it's all about that.
I love that. Well, okay, well, Sean, I thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Like, your knowledge is just, like, I don't know what it is. Well, you have kind of given us an insight, but like, your drive is amazing. It is amazing, and I thank you.
That means a lot, Jimmy.
How can people get a hold of you? How can people get in touch with you?
Great. Go to the obesityrevolution.com. Okay. And there's Teens of America. You'll see Teens of America. Everything that I'm doing is all there. The obesityrevolution.com. You can follow me on social media, Facebook at I am Sean Mulony, and Twitter at I am Sean Mulony. And then on Instagram, the Obesity Revolution. So Instagram.com, the Obesity Revolution. And so all of that right there is at the obesityrevolution.com. It's everything's all under one roof. You can read my Forbes article, my Fox interview is all there. I was on the morning show in UK called This Morning UK. It's the equivalent of the Today Show here in America. And there 25. They had me on for 10 minutes, and 25 million viewers. That I got to share my story. And the really funny thing about that interview, on the bottom, the tag, the tick tag down there at the bottom, it said one of the world's fattest men turns fitness star, is what it said. And that's was on my interview and I was like, I just laugh about it. I'm like, I didn't turn a fitness star, and I wasn't the world's fattest, one of the world's fattest men. There's other people that, they don't even know. But nonetheless, it was pretty awesome that I got to do that and share my story. And, UK has been great, to me. I mean, South Africa has me on their show, Cape Town, South Africa. I have a really big following over there. I was on the biggest nighttime show there on Cape Town radio, which was awesome. And it's just been amazing. I mean, it's just, so the obesityrevolution.com, everything's all under one roof. Boom. And, follow my social media and my videos I share every day. So
I know I'm excited to see where the hell you're heading. Like you got a fan here, and I swear to you, I'm not just saying that.
Well, that means a lot, Jimmy.
Really do.
Well, Jimmy, well, anything I can do for you too, bro. I mean, rising tides floats more ships. So,
Amen. So I'm gonna let you go. We're gonna definitely stay in contact, and I'm definitely gonna be watching, because I want to know more. Like I swear to you, dude, you really pumped me up. Like I just wish I could express that more. But really,
thanks, Jimmy. Well, you're the man.
Man, oh my God. All right, I will be seeing you around, man.
All right. Well, have a great day, Jimmy. Everybody else, have a great day too. So,
have a good one.
See you, man.
Tell everybody I said hi. Waiting on $1 million.
Jimmy. That's right. In the account right away. So we'll see you, Jimmy.
All right, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, my goodness. Whew. I hope you took notes with me on that one because that was some serious knowledge. If you have not already, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our channel on iTunes or your favorite podcasting source. Also, visit us on Facebook, Instagram, or, oh my goodness, or you can even catch the live conversations right there on YouTube. See you again soon. Until next time, let's make positivity even louder.